funny story, but also this story is so glorious because me and CJ, we have done quite a bit of propaganda report, and I have been hammering the point over the last year at least that the United States has state TV, no different than state TV. Now, just for the sake of the segment, I'm gonna explain the concept again. There's no difference between what we have in our country when you have people who advertise. You have weapon defense contractors who advertise on MSNBC and CNN. Those weapon defense contractors also advertise and send money to Joe Biden. Send money, I mean. You have Big Pharma, you have Moderna, you have all these health insurance companies who send money to MSNBC and CNN, and then these people openly root for the guy who said he want to veto Medicare for all. In the middle of a debate on CNN, I remember this to this day because when I was a Bernie bro, this shit made me furious. In the middle of a debate, Bernie Sanders debating Joe Biden about Medicare for all, and they running anti-Medicare for all ads in the middle of the debate. People don't think this is state media, and so this company is being paid. The media company being paid by the weapon defense contractors and Moderna, who was the largest fundraiser for Joe Biden. Moderna and Big Pharma gave him a ton of money, so they advertise on the corporate media, who also for Joe Biden. That's way more sophisticated and way more corrupt than what you find in China, in Russia, or in any other country. Yes,
go
ahead, Lucy.
One thing I learned from the Bernie campaign, I don't know if you remember when people would show up to CNN like outside, because they have live streaming with signs, and some of them would get in like, CNN is fake news, or like they'd have like a big sign, we need to bring that back. To CNN, NPR, the Daily Show is free, by the way, to go to if anybody wants to go to that.
Oh, are they really struggling to get people that bad as free, or has it always been like that?
It's always been free.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, so you can show up and heckle Trevor.
Ah, that motherfucker, man. That dude is just like NPR, mouthpiece of the Pentagon. Now, Elon, they put a state media tag on NPR. Now, you had Twitter put Russia state affiliate media on people who literally don't even work for Russia. Like George Galloway, like the best example, how they put Russia state affiliate media. He's like, I don't even work for any Russian affiliate. Wyatt Reed also got hit with that as well. And that's something that Twitter has been known to do. So Elon, there's something that was interesting where he put the state affiliate media on NPR, which is 100% on point because anyone who knows NPR, it has smeared Julian Assange, and they also, like, you had Cy Hirsch who reported on the Nord Stream bombing. They are nowhere to be found. NPR constantly play defense for Israeli genocide against the Palestinian people. Never found a war they did not support. Never found a Democratic Party talking point that they did not support. NPR is beyond garbage. I have covered NPR countless times since the creation of RBN. That's why I don't even have to preach to the choir to you guys. Because how many segments of mine have you guys seen? Well, I'm like, have you guys seen this shit that NPR said? You have Morning Joe that regularly quotes NPR. They're like, NPR has a report today to explain why young people should get behind Joe Biden. So, NPR, directly funded by the government, state media, already repeat everything the Pentagon says, is then repeated by Joe Scarborough, Morning Joe, all the CNN heads. It's all one big club, all one media apparatus that they have control of. They have control of the messaging and the narrative. NPR also, one of the biggest to the credibility, it's been shown that the Hunter Biden laptop story was true. NPR, I think I might have spoiled it. But anyway, I guess here it is. I went out of order, but well, I'll share with you guys what I'm talking about. Here's one of the examples of NPR being just straight up rank state media on behalf of the Democratic Party here. This is the famous tweets. Why haven't you seen any stories from NPR about the New York Post Hunter Biden story? We don't want to waste our time on stories that are not really stories. NPR, just like every other media outlet, what got the Hunter Biden laptop story wrong because they say this is Russian propaganda. You had intelligence agencies that leaked to media. Another example of how this is state media. They took intelligence information and said, "Oh, the Hunter Biden laptop story that has signs of Russian disinformation." So NPR decided not to talk about a giant story of Biden corruption that will 100% influence the election because it's Russian propaganda. Because it would have helped, it would have hurt Joe Biden. I can go all day with these examples of how NPR is state media, but I'm gonna show you guys the meltdown because it's the funny part of the story. I'm gonna try to keep this story shorter. The funny part of the story is the absolute fucking meltdown that come from the cult, the people who are completely excuse me, detached from reality, the liberal journalists. Like the average person, I don't know any motherfucker in my life who's subscribed and read NPR. This is for East Coast, West Coast, Western liberal elites who read NPR every fucking day as if it's news. So the people who read NPR, the people who follow and actually subscribe to the liberal blue checks, Elon Musk putting state affiliated media on NPR is one of the most insulting crimes that he has done. Once I said this is like the only thing Elon's done that has been even worth a chuckle to me. Like Elon's run at Twitter has been embarrassing, but this was only a few things he did. People still getting banned left and right. The algorithm is shit. That's why I got like Zoya, Lucy, J. I turn all my homies' notifications on. I don't even look at the timeline no more. I just stalk you motherfuckers' profile because the algorithm is shit because of Elon, right? But the only good thing Elon has done is trolling NPR. Liberals are melting down on. I know the text is small, so I read it. I got quite a few of these funny ones for you guys. This is Lulu. Who is this person actually? I didn't actually look. This person writes for New York Times opinion. So her opinion really matters. She's a real establishment journalist. We are all just ruffians and thugs, fake journalists. This is where the real news comes from. This person right here. This Lulu person. You know she got the degrees. You know she got the connections. You know she deserves her position at New York Times. Surely she analyzed political positions, right? This is Lulu. NPR is not state-affiliated media. It is public media. Look at this. The New York Times is not propaganda. The New York Times is not propaganda. It is the most robust news organization in the English-speaking world. The bias as to who is being targeted on this site by its leadership is very clear, and it's not a small thing. The amazing journalistic integrity of the New York Times, as described by Lulu, is being attacked by Elon Musk, and that is not a small thing. And you also, and I think I had a response to this. This is Matt Blumenthal response to this. NPR is not state-affiliated media. Its U.S. government-sponsored staff reliably transmit U.S. government talking points about foreign governments. The United States government seek to topple through their own independent initiative without any collaboration with the United States government. Now, a lot of people chimed in on this as well. I'm going to show another person who melted down. If you've been on Twitter, you always seen this account, Caroline, boosted by the algorithm. Biggest shit lib you can possibly find. Look at her reaction. Wow, way to make this label meaningless. NPR is absolutely not even comparable to propaganda outlets like RP and Sputnik. And I agree, they're worse. They're worse. Which have no editorial independence. This is, and everyone at RT will tell you different. Fiorella Isabel, good friend of the show. She will tell you, everyone who worked at RT will tell you. You had Chris Hedges who will tell you way more freedom at RT compared to Western media outlets. Chris Hedges, in particular, wrote at the New York Times. And he says that. And she says, this is ridiculous. and only helps actual propaganda outlets blend in with legitimate news outlets. They believe NPR is a legitimate news outlet. This is Glenn Greenwald. He had a lot to say about this. He was on fire today. Glenn said, here's a self-proclaimed disinformation expert. I will talk to Glenn about that as well. These people who label themselves disinformation experts, how do you get a disinformation degree? Jay, Lucy, Zoya? Is there a process you go through where you're an expert, like a master's degree in disinformation? There's not. Spoiler alert. They just made it up. One day, in order to combat people like
I hadn't even heard that word until this year. I didn't even. Yeah. I have never heard that word disinformation until recently.
Yeah, now they're experts. People who've been studying disinformation their entire lives, apparently. And then every single time, and Glenn has done great segments on this, when you look at these quote-unquote disinformation experts, look into their past, it's not like they had a long career of disproving government lies, proving people wrong. It's always like, this person is a disinformation expert. Oh, what is the qualifications? Oh, he used to go to Yale. His daddy used to work at New York Times. So what makes him an expert? Oh, he studied business. Oh, he used to have a business. Now he's a disinfo expert. What? How does that make sense? How did that make sense? They just created this new position out of thin air, and it started around 2016, where you have people who started becoming fact checkers, disinfo expert that was debunking Trump, a completely made up thing out of nowhere. Glenn does a great job breaking that down. Anyway, I'll continue his tweet. He says, here's a self-proclaimed disinformation expert, quote unquote, affiliated with a Department of Defense program, also leaping to NPR's defense. Scratch a self-proclaimed disinformation expert and we'll find USG ties. Know how many state functionaries are vehemently defending NPR, like Karine Jean-Pierre, who we will also get to. Now, here's some more examples. It was NPR was trending. It was filled with these establishment bootlicking pro-war imperialists defending NPR for doing pro-war imperialism shit. Here's Emily Fang, who I'm sure has nothing but great things to say about China. If I had a nickel for every time I had to explain NPR is not government funded nor government run, NPR is a nonprofit which drives all its profits into news and gets about 1%. We get to watch that misleading.
Wait, I want to say something about that. So I found another one. It was this tweet by Bryce Green, which I put in the comments, and it says,
"Oh yeah, I saw that one. I'll go to that one real quick. Here it is.
Oh, you're going to that one? Okay, I'll let you have.
Did you see it? Did you see it?
Yeah, that one.
Oh, I'll read it, and I'll go back to my other one. Here, there's Bryce. NPR people trying to have his cake and eat it too. When people were threatening to cut federal funding from NPR, they claimed that money was essential to their job. Now, when they get labeled state-affiliated media, they all claim the money means nothing. Great receipt, Lucy. Well, that's exactly the point I'm going to get to here as well. Because that's the messaging that's come from liberals. That, oh, man, you guys can bring up public funding, but it's not even that much. It's completely insignificant. I explained to you guys before the segment, I don't even care about the public funding part that much. I'm not inherently a disagreement in public funding for media outlets. I'm talking about the direct corruption that comes from state operative spooks, pro-police people, pro-military people who write in a part of the NPR and media system that is not disclosed. There's nothing wrong with having public media funding, but NPR is a direct mouthpiece of the Pentagon and is not adversarial to the state. And by the way, engaging in red-blue bullshit where the point of the story to say Republicans are worse than the Democrat, that is not adversarial. So if you run a story talking about, oh, we're gonna expose Ron DeSantis, that's not adversarial. You're just helping Democrats. That's the only reason you're doing it. But anyway, I'm gonna get to this point here. Well, look at this. This is what I got. I think there's 2 receipts here. So I'm gonna read both of them real quick, and I'm gonna show you why it's bullshit. So they continue. NPR is a nonprofit which drives all its profits into news and gets about 1% of its funding a year from competitive news. Once again, as you said, Lucy, bullshitting. Another one, Melissa Chan. I actually broke a segment. That name sounds hella familiar. Anyway, Twitter labeling NPR state affiliate media is terrible false equivalence to propaganda outlets like China's Zhua or Russia Today. NPR get 1% to 2% funding. Here's the part again, Lucy, where they try to downplay it. Now, I don't know how to read the rest of this tweet. You guys see the messaging. Now, this is a great tweet. Shout out to Cal here. Cal says some journalists are complaining about NPR being given a state-affiliated media label, citing 1% of funding comes from federal government statistics. That's very misleading for several reasons. If you look at on NPR's own website, it admits that federal funding is essential to its operations because a large part of its revenue comes from fees it charges member stations. These member stations are funded directly by the government. You guys hear that? Directly by the government. And you had, I'm gonna pull this up here as well. You had Karine Jean-Pierre and the Biden administration. I actually forgot to say the video, but it's not hard to find. Here it is. You had Karine Jean-Pierre who was asked about this, and they actually made it sound worse here. Let's listen to this.
The hard-hitting independence nature of their coverage speaks for itself, and so I'll leave it there. Go ahead.
You have the Biden administration who is trying to prosecute Julian Assange, who kicked out an African journalist because they refused to take their questions, who's waging war on the free press, who has nothing but praise for NPR. And so Glenn Greenwald nails it here when he says, totally, the best way for a news outlet like NPR to show that they're not beholden to the United States government and are unbiased is to have the White House press secretary rise to her feet in defense of NPR and heap praise of their great reporting. Now I'm asking you guys a question. Is Karine Jean-Pierre defending Julian Assange? Is she defending Cy Hirsch? In fact, the reason why they're praising NPR is because NPR ignored Cy Hirsch's bombshell reporting that exposed the Biden administration eco-terrorism. That's why the Biden administration is praising. You guys will hear it again. It's only 4 seconds.
The hard-hitting independence nature of their coverage speaks for itself, and so I'll leave it there.
We're not state affiliate media. Say the people that are being praised by the state. Anyone want to chime in? I know I'm ranting a lot. Feel free to chime in. Anyone, Lucy, Jay, Zoya, before I move on to the next part. We're almost done here.
Well, on the funding, it literally says, what is the largest single source of funding for public broadcasting? And Corporation for Public Broadcasting, that's what it's called, is a private nonprofit corporation created by Congress in the Public Broadcasting Act of 1967. CPB is the steward of the federal government's investment in public broadcasting and the largest single source of funding for public radio, television, and related online and mobile services. But if the government is funding this and NPR claims independence, why are they parroting mainstream narratives? Just as to Nick's point earlier, it's not journalism if you have a specific side, if you're pushing a specific narrative. And I was a longtime listener of NPR myself, and I have to say, though their coverage was never really, amazing, I definitely saw a shift to the right over time. It was subtle, but it happened. And over the decades, they've just pushed more and more propaganda where now I can't even tell them apart from CNN.